Museums are known for their exciting exhibitions and events, but did you know that museums can also be a sanctuary of self-care? Hit pause on your busy week every Wellness Wednesday with Mind and Mood Recharge at the Penn Museum, powered by Penn Medicine. Every first Wednesday from 5 to 8 p.m., starting November 5th, get centered with all levels yoga, sound bath, guided meditation sessions, and more in this revitalizing after-hours experience. Penn Medicine staff and patients get in for free. Look for the code from Penn Medicine or show your Penn Medicine ID at the door. For more information, head over to penn.museum/recharge. There is an estimated 5,000 unhoused people in Philly, but the city's best program to prevent homelessness is giving people one-way bus tickets out of the city. Why is that the solution? And can we do better than that? It's Monday, October 20th. I'm Trenae Nuri, and here's what Philly's talking about. Claudia Vargas, NBC 10 investigative reporter, and Ali Ingersoll, NBC 10 investigative content producer. Thank you both so much for joining me today. Ali, I want to start with you. Can you just break down what is this program? It seems pretty straightforward, but also shocking.
It's called the Stranded Travelers Assistance Program. It's run by the city's Office of Homeless Services. It's where they help people who are unhoused find support in other cities. So when it was originally created, and from the city's own brochure, it says that it's for people who are non-residents to be able to take a ticket from the city and go to a place where they might have more family or social support. What we found through our reporting is that it's also people who are Philadelphia residents who maybe have support in other places or different opportunities in other places. They're utilizing this program as well.
When did this program start?
So Stranded Travelers programs actually have a really long history. We were able to get data from the city-run one from 2021. But when we talked to Dennis Colhane from the University of Pennsylvania, he looks into housing solutions and policy. He said that this has been a program that has been in existence for dozens of years, not only here in Philadelphia, but all around the country. There are more than 100 programs like this around the country. And it was really made for people who are stranded. So that is in the name. And so for a long time down at the train station, there was a kiosk where people who were maybe stuck and couldn't get out of Philadelphia could approach this and be like, hey, I really need help to get out of here. And they would be able to get out of Philadelphia and go back to where they came from. We found out, though, that the city is now operating this program and it's not being run by a nonprofit. And when we talked to Dennis Colhane, he said that that's what makes Philadelphia's program really unusual. So like I said, there are hundreds of these programs, or about 100 of these programs around the country, but most often nonprofits take this up. In Philadelphia, it's the city that is paying for this. So when we initially wanted to tackle this story, we wanted to look at if people are leaving Philadelphia, are people also coming to Philadelphia from other major cities? So we have sister stations all over the country, and I reached out to them and I was like, hey, can you file records requests to try to look at what's happening with your programs? And that was really when we first started realizing that these were run by organizations that were nonprofits and not by the city themselves, because our other stations started getting responses from their cities being like, hey, that's not a public record because it's a nonprofit, so it's not a city-run agency.
Why is that happening?
Yeah, so I asked Bruce Johnson from the Office of Homeless Services why taxpayer money is being used for this program. And he said that at the end of the day, their job is to end homelessness here in the city of Philadelphia. And that's when he said that this is one of the most efficient programs to do it. And he went on to say that it's a very small cost to provide somebody the opportunity to end homelessness here in Philly. They see it as a small amount of taxpayer money being used to give somebody a bus ticket to go somewhere else, where the idea is that they'll get help and be connected with someone who can provide housing, connect them with resources in that other location.
So, Ali, where do people actually go?
So we were able to get the information from the city dating back to 2021, and it shows that about 1 in every 5 people who have used this program since that time, they actually went to places in Pennsylvania. But that means still that hundreds of people are going out of the state and to places all over the country. The top locations include Florida, New York, North Carolina, California, and Georgia. A lot of these trips, they're about $500 or less per person. In that time, though, the cumulative cost of it has been about $270,000 since 2021.
That doesn't seem like a lot of money, but Claudia, what are some of the concerns with this program, though?
Right. So it's not a lot of money because it's bus tickets, right? So, bus tickets wouldn't be as expensive as perhaps airplane or train. And the numbers, I think last year they had about 200 or 300 people who used the program. So that's why we're not seeing huge numbers of them. But in terms of the concerns, one of the things that we found is that the city doesn't do any background checks on these individuals. So while they offer it to anyone who is unhoused and wants to go elsewhere where they might have more support, there's no background check. There's no check of court records to see if there's a warrant out for their arrest or if they need to stay here in Philadelphia for any law enforcement reasons. And on top of that, once they go to their other destination, there's no follow-up. So while they say that this is a way to end homelessness here in Philadelphia, we don't know if they're going to end up being homeless at their next location or if they actually will be housed. So those are some of the questions that we asked the city about the lack of follow-up.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, so Claudia, your team also interviewed a man who was unhoused and was about to board a bus to Florida, but he's never been there. So sometimes folks that are participating in this program are getting shipped to cities that they have no connection to?
Right. So in the case of Rafael Colon, who's the man you're referring to, he was connected with a program in Florida, so a residential program that would help him rehabilitate. And so while he had never been to Florida and has no family there, he was technically going to a program there. So that's why he got the bus ticket to go to Florida. Now, we since found out that he has made a return to Philly, and the nonprofit that had helped connect him with the city to get that bus pass has since lost touch with him. So it's unclear if he's back to being unhoused here in Philly, if he's back with family, or what his situation is.
We'll have more on this conversation after the break. I'm still trying to wrap my head around how this is even working. Ali, how did you all come across this story?
So Claudia had been talking with someone and anecdotally heard that this was happening. And I do a lot of reporting in the Kensington area and on the opioid crisis. And so I was just kind of asking around. I happened to be in Kensington the day that Rafael Colon came into a space to try to get assistance. And he was talking about wanting change and wanting to get out of Philadelphia. And as I was there, he was offered this program. And he said, I didn't know that I could leave Philadelphia this way. And they set him up with a place down in Florida. And it really happened within the day. That was maybe 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. And by 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he was boarding that bus to Florida.
So it happens really quickly.
Yeah. If a bus is leaving that day to the place they're going, it happens quickly.
So, Ali, can a person keep using this program over and over again? Or are there some limits to it?
There are limitations to it. The city told us that if someone is going through this program, they can only utilize it once every 12 months. But the city also told us that if they do wind up back in Philadelphia, like the situation with Rafael Colon, that the city said they're going to help them with other programs that they have. They're going to set them up with other resources. And if in a couple months and 12 months, they say, hey, I want to try again, I want to reconnect with people again in a different city, then they can utilize this program.
What questions were you all asking about homelessness in our city that led you to more investigating in the story, Claudia?
Well, like I said, I was working on a completely different story. It was actually on a cold case out in New Jersey. And in speaking with law enforcement there, they happened to mention that they've seen a big increase in their transient population, and that is in part because, as they said, Philly was shipping people from Kensington down to their South Jersey town. And so I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. And so as Ali shared, she had been covering a lot of the opioid crisis and what's going on in Kensington. So I passed that along to her. I was like, hey, like, have you heard of this bus program that apparently they're busing people away from Kensington? And so she started looking into that, and turned out it's a legit program, the Stranded Travelers program. The ironic thing, though, is, and I don't know, Ali, if you want to comment more on this, but Ali didn't really find any evidence that people were being bused from Philly to this particular South Jersey town. But that is how that tip came about. And so it was just, curiosity from a journalist working on something and then leading us to something else. So that was the genesis of the story. But once Ali found out that it was a legit program, we obviously started looking more into it. How much taxpayer money is going into it? What are the results? Is it actually leading to a decrease in homelessness? And so forth.
Is it leading to a decrease in homelessness?
Well, it's hard for us to say. When we spoke with the city, they said that it ends someone's homelessness here in the city of Philadelphia. Because if someone is not in the city of Philadelphia, they're not homeless in the city of Philadelphia. But we do know that from the latest point in time count, which is that federal count that takes place every January, that there has been an increase in people in the city of Philadelphia who are unhoused this year compared to last.
When my team and I were talking about, reaching out to you all to actually talk about this story, I was just shocked about how maybe the city considers this, an effective program to, quote unquote, end homelessness. Is this really preventing homelessness or just shifting the problem to another city?
We asked that question because that is some of the criticism. We've heard this actually from some suburban towns saying, oh, Philly's just busing people away. And I do want to be clear that this is a voluntary program. So it's not Philly, rounding up anybody who they see who's unhoused and be like, hey, we're putting you on a bus and shipping you out. No, this is voluntary. So the person who gets that bus ticket has to go to the city or a nonprofit who coordinates with the city and says, hey, I do want to take you up on this Stranded Traveler program. Can I get a bus pass or bus ticket to X location? So it is a voluntary thing. Mm-hmm. So when we interviewed Bruce Johnson, the assistant deputy director of the Office of Homeless Services, he said that in his mind, this is the most effective program. And that's because he finds it to be straightforward. It's just, hey, as he put it, I'm ready to end my homelessness and I'm ready to move to this location. So for them, it's just a simple process. And it's just one of the many programs that they have in the city to address homelessness. So it's not like this is the end all be all. This is just one of their tools, but they find it to be effective in their perspective because it's simple. It's just buying somebody a bus pass and checking that they do have someone on the other end to receive them. So from their perspective, that's simple, straightforward, and they consider it to be effective. Our questions were on, why is there no follow-up? Like, what kind of background do you do? And so that was, as you saw, it was part of our story.
And Claudia, you just mentioned that there are other homeless prevention efforts happening in the city. What are those and how effective are they?
So our story, for this particular story, really just looked at the Stranded Travelers program. So we didn't necessarily compare it to other programs, but obviously, the mayor has her big home initiative. Mm-hmm. The story was just focused on the Stranded Travelers program.
Ali Ingersoll and Claudia Vargas, thank you so much for joining me on CityCast Philly today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can find a link to Claudia and Ali's story about this program in our show notes. We also have a link to our CityCast Philly episode from earlier this year about the home initiative that Claudia mentioned. That's all for us here today on CityCast Philly. Let us know what you think about this episode and share this with a friend. Rate the show, leave us a review, and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter, Hey Philly, to learn more about what else Philly's talking about. And don't forget, you can support the show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Philly neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.